Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.
The Sparkfile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Spark File, your one-stop print shop for creative inspiration.
I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. You may be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File? Where do I get one? What do I file in it? These are such good questions, and we have got answers.
A Spark File is a place where you consistently collect all your inspirations and fascinations. And if you're like us and you're making stuff all the time, sometimes the wellspring of inspiration can run a little dry. We're here to refill it.
So we're on the lookout for fresh ideas, images, and inspiration that spark our creativity and pique our curiosity, things that inspire us to rise up off of our asses and make things like this podcast.
Or a limitless catalog of inspired graphic designs for brand logos, books, film, and TV shows.
Including the title design for one of the most iconic and one of my favorite shows, Saturday Night Live.
Or a powerful visual history of protest and resistance in America, from suffragettes to Black Lives Matter.
Or a book devoted to helping non-creative clients learn how to get the most of the creative teams they hire.
On today's Makersode, we're going to talk with someone who truly sparks us.
And that special someone is Bonnie Siegler. Bonnie! Welcome to
the Spark File.
You guys are adorable.
Thank you.
No, you.
Did your life flash before your eyes?
Yes, very much so.
I love there's this dawning realization when the guest is like, they're talking about me.
Exactly.
Hey, I did that. Wow.
I also did that.
Oh, Bonnie.
I thought you were going to say Will and Grace, actually.
Oh,
but
interesting.
you said Saturday Night Live.
Oh,
'Cause she did Will and Grace too.
Interesting. Saturday Night
SNL.
Live, baby.
She's at SNL. Susan was actually like, what years did
I know. I was
Bonnie
like,
do?
what casts are we talking about?
93 and then plus 20 years.
But you also did like 96, 97.
Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah. All
20
those.
years, yeah.
Can I? And
Amazing.
You know what? Maybe.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we get back to it. I don't want to lose it. As a lifelong fan of that show, and I've said on the podcast before, I've never been a person who's been like, oh, I thought it was good one day in a car. I love it all. I love it all. And I love the art direction and the titling on that fucking show.
Thank you.
And here is the woman responsible.
I don't FF.
for it.
I don't FF through any of that ever, even when the technology allowed me to. I love looking at it all the way back, and this predates you, but all the way back to like the watercolor tint. I just have always thought it's so right on the leading edge. Bonnie Siegler.
Thank you. For the first few years, we just worked on parody commercials. And
Oh.
then we redesigned the logo, which we redesigned again and again. But then in like 97, we started doing the opening sequence.
Amazing.
So cool.
Oh,
So cool.
All right.
Okay,
We may
so
come back to
as
it.
you know, before we truly get started, there is a price of admission. You need to share with us something that you have created recently or creative risk you've taken recently.
Oh, that's easy.
Oh, okay. All right. Tell us.
I have a development deal for a TV show. That was my idea.
Shut it.
Oh my God. Are we the first to
Honey.
know? Have you spoken about it?
I can't say
Okay,
any
okay.
details because.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because-
But I mean, I've never done anything like
You have a
this before.
development deal for a TV show?
You were
Go
going to say a
ahead, Zach.
fucking
Fucking
TV show.
TV
Motherfucking TV
show.
show. That's
That
fantastic.
does not surprise me.
And how does it? So this, you've never done anything like this before.
Not where it was, not where I've sold the idea. No.
That's
Oh my
a hot
God.
risk.
Okay, tell us about the part though that just like made you want to shit your pants. Like, was it the pitching it? Was it knowing that it's going to
been
happen?
3 years.
Oh my gosh.
I never knew, like when people at the Oscars say like, well, I've been working on this, developing it for 10 years. I was always like, why?
Why is it taking so long?
Now I know.
Yeah.
3 years. And we still haven't started.
Things of quality take time. They really do. They do.
Is that, I'm just curious, like, is that part of it hard for you? Because I know you as someone who's like, do. Let's get it
Yes.
done.
Yes, but I've done other. I mean, it's not my job, my main job. So
Yeah.
I was working the whole time. I wasn't like waiting for the doorbell to ring or the
Yeah.
phone to ring.
Yeah.
So that makes it easier.
Yeah.
Will
Good.
there come a time when this goes into production where it does become more the
Yes,
center of your existence?
Absolutely. I hope so.
That's so exciting.
So-
I wanted to. It's just something
Thrilling.
totally different for me.
It is.
So that's what's
Oh, I'm excited for you.
That
really
is
fun.
thrilling.
Good risk.
Okay, you're officially admitted to the Spark File.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Full disclosure, I should say at the top that I had the pleasure of working with Bonnie when I was the creative director and head writer on a book called Blue Man World. Bonnie and her team at 8.5 did a beautiful work on this book. So I know you a little bit, but for people who don't know you, can you tell us, it's a two-parter,
Okay.
how do you identify creatively? And where are most people most likely to have seen your work or encountered your work?
Okay, wait. First, can I say what you said to me the other night when I saw you?
Yeah, I think. What did I say?
You
So
were
we
drunk.
worked together a lot. No alcohol was involved. So we made this book together years ago. And then since then, I wrote this book called Dear Client, which aims to, you know what I'm going to say,
Oh, no. Please say it. I'm
Okay.
going to be horrified.
which aims to teach people how to work with creative people.
Sure.
Because in order for it to be successful, both sides have to be happy and satisfied. It doesn't work if only one is. And so Laura said to me after she read my book, she realized how badly they had done when they were my client.
at being clients.
But I have to say that made me feel so good. I told people that you said that.
Really?
Like, it means my book made a difference. You heard it. It went into your head. And it's not like anybody has to be perfect, but some things went in and they will come out for the next guy.
That's right.
And
That's right.
That means a lot to me.
I was just telling Susan, like, you don't know, I guess, until you know. If you're someone who starts out as a creative coordinator, as you write about in the book, you're just doing it the way the guy above you told you to do it. No, just call them, send an RFP, blah, blah, blah. And then as you grow and learn, you're like, oh my God, I think there's a better way to do this. And maybe some of the things that I witnessed, and, not just with your agency, but others, there are better ways to do it. And you outlined it for us. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Ask.
Yeah.
I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I didn't see any of this go down. Bonnie, did you agree with Laura's assessment that they had been kind of a challenging client?
I mean, Laura knew it at the time. It was a difficult process.
It was rough.
And we weren't.
Breech birth all the way. Is it toughie?
But I'm always honest about stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go like whimper in the corner. We talked about it. We tried to find better ways to move forward.
Oh
all
my
of that
God,
stuff.
I love you.
I love like
So great.
honesty is one thing you can count on from like I see you and I think like you're not capable of bullshitting through an answer without telling the truth. You're like, I'm gonna give you the truth.
And I have no poker face.
I love it. I personally love it because I feel like if you know what's going on with someone, then you can deal with it. And like,
Right.
now we can talk about it. But when someone has a great poker face and they're like, no, everything's great.
Yeah.
It's fine. You're like, I don't feel like it's fine.
Right.
You can't deal with it.
Well, and that's one of the things in the book is I tell a story about a client who said, oh my God, I love all of this. It's amazing. And then the next day had her representative call to say, no, she hated it all.
Oh God.
Oh, okay.
Have
I
we
have
said the
feelings
title of
about
the
that.
book? Have we actually said the title of this book?
We have not. Bonnie, give us the title. I'll do the subtitle.
Okay. Dear Client is the title.
Subtitle: This book will teach you how to get what you want from creative people.
Brilliant.
It's genius.
Yeah.
And it's just like you. It's straightforward. It's like boom, boom, boom. Like, let's not bullshit around this. Here's how it is.
The best thing for me about it is we made a deal with a bookstore in Austin, Texas called Book People, and you can have the book sent anonymously.
No way. No way. Oh.
Dear Valentine, please be a better fucking
my
client.
gosh.
That's amazing.
It arrives in like the way
Brown paper, like porno.
Exactly, like
Yes.
porn magazines used to arrive in the olden days.
Yes.
So yeah, nobody will know who sent it.
That is fucking awesome.
Okay,
That's
this
amazing.
can be off the record, but I need to know, like, I looked at the date that you published that book.
Almost 2 years
Was
ago.
the experience with us the reason why you wrote that book?
Oh my God, no.
Okay, good. Because I was like, it sort of lines up.
There is,
You're like,
there is not a blue man story in the book.
oh, great. Okay, good. That's really good.
And I have to tell you, everybody asks me, am I
I'm
in
sure
there?
you're like, can I do that?
Everybody wants the book to be about
Yeah.
them on
Not
some
in
level.
this.
On some level.
I know. Well, you read it and you're like, I know, whether it was with Bonnie or someone else, I know that groups of people I've worked with, we've been guilty of this, we've been guilty of that. Like, you recognize yourself in it as you read.
What
I
an
think you
amazing thing
can't-
to do with, I have to imagine, tell me if I'm wrong, that this was born out of a career full of frustration, but what an amazing thing to do with those feelings, to actually pour them into something creative that is of service.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it was a public service, but it wasn't born out of frustration, actually. What it was born out of was I'm involved with the National Organization of Design, AIGA, and you'd go to conferences and everyone would talk and all they would do is complain about clients. And it was the same story. Everybody had the same 10 stories.
Yeah.
Just like, why do we all know these 10 stories
right.
and they don't know these 10 stories? So what if we just gave them the benefit of the doubt and assume they just don't know? They're not bad people, and tell them.
It's fantastic.
It makes so much sense because if you're not a creative person, you make a lot of assumptions because you're
and
thinking
one of those
like you work the way
assumptions
I
might
work.
be that you are a deeply creative person. Do you know what I mean? Like if you were the head of a soap company,
That's correct.
you might be like,
Yes.
and I do watercolors on the weekend. Like, and bless.
That's right.
I'm not, this isn't a takedown of CEOs who do
Right.
watercolors on the weekend, but it's like, but you may overestimate your professional capabilities when it comes to things like, I don't know, design.
Well, I think that, and you also might be working in a culture where it's not okay to not have the answer. So the people
See,
at the
you're so much more
table-
subtle than I am.
No, I like watercolors on the weekend. It's my new band name. But I think that there's times when there's people around the room and there's a person who says, I like it. And that person can't possibly be as smart as the person who's like, I'm going to rip that apart. I got some ideas. I know how to fix this.
Criticism is always taken more seriously than praise. Like in a focus group, if someone criticizes something, then everyone else is like, oh, I must not be as smart as them because I liked it. And it's hard to go against the crowd, which is why I hate focus groups. But the thing in the book, sort of connected to watercolors on the weekends, there's a chapter called...
Watercolors on the weekends. Please let it be. God damn it.
but it
The
relates.
next book.
It's called We don't care what your spouse thinks.
Very related.
Oh my God, I have to get my
Tell
husband
us
as a
more.
graphic designer and he must own this book. I think he's going to love it.
I mean, I've literally been told, well, I showed it to my 12-year-old. She has really good taste in design and things. And she said, I'm totally
Painful.
serious.
Let me jump back in.
anecdotes.
I want to jump back in. So when you're at a professional function or at a cocktail party and people ask you what you do or how you identify creatively, how would you answer that?
I'm a graphic designer.
And to Laura's question, what of your work would people be most familiar with?
I mean, probably the TV stuff, most likely, network TV and cable TV. I've worked on a lot of shows with HBO, a lot for NBC, and
Can you give us some names? Just drop a few names.
sure. Well, Will and Grace, we did the very first season and every season thereafter, including the current batch. There have been a few sitcoms that didn't last very long that I won't
Not due
name.
to the title credits, though.
Correct. The logo for 30 Rock.
Wow.
And hotels. We've done a lot of hotels in New York, the Mercer, the Maritime. We did stuff for Chateau Marmont.
And a million books.
A million
There's
books.
actually a book that Susan is familiar with. When I told her that I knew you and was hoping you would do our podcast, Susan was like, hold on.
Did you do the book that accompanied the release of the film Beloved?
Yes.
Fun true fact. I remember standing in a Barnes and Noble at one of those big tables that there are like 1,000 books you could gravitate towards.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the book that I could not step away from.
I thought the movie was beautiful. I remember when we went to the cast and crew screening, my partner and I literally sat there for 20 minutes after crying.
Yeah.
Like I just couldn't
Yeah.
stop sobbing.
Yeah.
But Oprah, just to make a connection here, Oprah is the very first story in the book of a great client.
Oh.
And why was Oprah a great client?
We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know how involved she would be. And when we sent the first set of sketches, she called, she dialed, there wasn't an assistant saying hold for Oprah. And then
We're like, what's the Chicago number? Who do we know in that area code?
no, somebody,
It's amazing.
my assistant said Oprah's on the phone. And I just assumed it would be please hold
An
for
office,
Oprah.
yes.
Yeah.
No. And then we went through the book and she asked a million questions and she would say, why did you do this? And sometimes when we answered, she'd say, oh, okay, I understand now. And sometimes she'd say, I still don't like it. But it was just a conversation and she gave us the chance to explain what we did so that maybe it would make a difference to her. Sometimes it didn't. It was her call completely. But we had a great conversation, which then pushed us to do better for the rest of the project.
Oh, God.
Didn't you say
that's
in the
great.
book, I don't want to get this wrong, but there were some magic phrases like, I'm noticing this.
Oh, it's,
and I wonder this.
I notice, I wonder, as a way to respond. It was actually developed for responding to children's artwork.
I was going to say, keep going,
Yeah,
but this seems
yeah.
like it could apply to a lot of different creatives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you never want, you don't want to be honest with a child like, that doesn't look like a cow or whatever. But because you always want to encourage them to keep going. So you say what you notice. And this goes for critting design work too. You just say what you notice. No judgment involved. I notice it's very colorful, very poppy. Again, no judgment. Because
Yeah.
what you notice might not be what we even thought you would notice. And then you move on to, I wonder what would happen if, which is not saying, I don't like it, make it yellow.
Yes.
Yeah. Or can you move this over here and make this bigger?
Right. But
You're like, I
just
wonder
by
what would
prefacing it
happen.
with, I wonder if it wasn't in that order, or I wonder if the scale was different.
I notice, I
changes
wonder.
the whole relationship.
I
I'm
like
going
this.
to try
I
to
notice, I
remember
wonder.
that. Maybe we'll have it printed on a t-shirt to help me. I notice, I wonder. I think that's so good.
And so applicable.
And as somebody on the receiving end of that, you know from experience that feels more collaborative or that goes down easier.
Well, someone's not telling you what to do,
Yeah.
and they're inviting dialogue.
And they're not saying something is wrong with it when it's simply a subjective, it's a different choice.
Yeah, and
It's
it doesn't
nothing
have to
wrong.
be exactly those words.
Yeah.
but just that general idea of inviting dialogue rather than giving commands.
I feel like
love
this
it. applies
applies to everything. I
Everything.
can see a director speaking to an actor. It's so respectful. Or giving feedback to a writer once
Absolutely.
you've read a draft of
Yeah.
something. It's so
good.
respectful.
No, a lot of the stuff. I mean, the one of the quotes I have in the beginning of the book is from Mr. Rogers, which says the way to success. There are 3 ways to success. 1 is be nice, 2 is be nice, and 3 is be nice.
Sounds like Mr.
So
Rogers.
it applies to a lot of things.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your creative origin story? Like, was it always graphic design for you? Do you dabble in other visual arts? How'd you get here?
I didn't know what graphic design was for a long time. But when I was like 13, we went on a family vacation to Disney World. And at Disney World, it was the first place I saw what brand identity could do. There were these different worlds, and everything was branded
Like
so
fully
completely
themed.
and
Yes.
totally.
Yeah.
Everything, like the hotel amenities
Yes.
and the tickets and
Yes.
everything.
They're good.
And it blew my mind.
Yeah.
I didn't know why I was so drawn to it, but I was so drawn to it. So then I started drawing like band logos and making ads for different companies.
Watercolors on the weekends. Could you do the logo for that? Fantastic.
It was magic markers, but anyway,
In
but
your
same
notebook.
idea.
I love it.
And I would like find a company like Kleenex and make ads for them, like that I thought
You are
fit
shitting
with.
us. That's fucking awesome.
Then I discovered Andy Warhol.
Oh, what happened then?
I mean, he was just everything to me. I was so blown away because
Your mind got blown.
Again, because he was taking these brands that we knew and loved and making you look at them a different way. And why
Yes.
weren't they art anyway? And all these amazing
Yes.
questions that I'd never thought about. So I went to college where he went to college.
Did you really?
Yes.
Specifically to follow in the footsteps
I
of
did.
Andy Warhol.
I think
Wow.
that's legit.
I mean,
Why not?
I will say, I also had a very specific thing. I wanted to go to a design school within a bigger school. And there was only one. And it happened to be where he went. So it was like a little bit of both.
Can I ask you, as somebody who had no fucking idea about any of I never toured schools. I just didn't fucking know. How did you know as a young person that you wanted to go to a design school that was within a bigger school? How the fuck did you put
Yeah,
that
that's
together?
very specific
It was.
and mature.
Did you have a really super duper guidance counselor or something?
No, my guidance counselor hadn't heard of Carnegie Mellon.
Okay,
Oh.
I
so
brought it to her.
what?
found
How
this
did you figure that
school.
out?
I don't remember. It was a long time ago. I think it was just I had done a summer program at Parsons, and I saw, you're with everybody's like you. Everybody wants the same thing as you and is
Yeah.
thinking of the same things. And I think I just thought I want to be where there are other kinds of people too for these 4 years.
So you didn't want it just to be
Interesting. Yeah.
designer homogeny. You wanted it like
Exactly.
all the majors.
Yes. And I double majored in English. So I wanted also to be able to do that.
That's great.
Super smart.
Thanks for the tip.
So you followed Andy there,
Yes.
and it was there that you learned that you're very specifically a graphic designer.
Yeah, you had to. That's the other thing about Carnegie Mellon, which makes it unique, is you have to declare your major. There's no, I wonder, I'll decide sophomore year, I'll decide, you knew. So I
Yeah.
applied to be a graphic design major.
Yeah,
So I knew before I applied.
got it.
Jumping back, when
Yeah.
you were designing those band logos and those Kleenex logos in your Trapper Keeper, are you a gifted? Can you draw? Are you a gifted visual artist if you're just
Freehand?
doing watercolors on the weekend?
No,
Really?
Really?
I can't draw.
You can't draw.
No, I'm terrible, but I'm married to someone who can.
Okay, that's helpful.
That's interesting.
So I use him a lot.
But when you combined, you obviously had a vision that maybe you couldn't draw, but once you got on the computer and built
Yeah.
your skills, you were like, oh, now I
So
can make it.
I'm really old, so there were no computers.
Yeah.
But I could always draw type.
Yeah. Okay.
I love type and color and layout and all of those other elements. Illustration is more about really being able to draw
Yeah.
than graphic design, which is another reason I was drawn to graphic design. No pun intended. So I went to college from 1981 to 1985. 1984 is when the first Macintosh came out.
Mm-hmm.
So it really wasn't until like 87 with Mac 2. And even then, there wasn't a really good design program.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a while before the computer, kicked into my industry.
Yeah.
With Quark Express.
And now, so you learned all of that stuff, all of that layout by hand, right? Like
yes,
old school.
Yes.
And then now can you do all of that Adobe Illustrator?
Yes.
You can do all of that stuff.
Yes. When in the olden days, you got a piece of text, like let's say you were whatever, and making a poster, and you got a typed sheet with all the text on it, and you had to write the typeface and the size and the leading that you wanted each thing to be in. And then you sent that out and it came back the next day.
Jesus.
And if you didn't, and then you cut it up. And if you didn't like it, you had to send it back out again that night. I mean,
oh, wow.
Compared to what we can do now.
Yes.
In 3 minutes time.
It's
wow. Insane. Bonnie, I heard you speak recently, which was a joy, by the way. Honestly, I'd not seen you present, any of your work in a setting like that. So it was I really loved it. But you mentioned that there was a point in your career where you made a real shift into, I guess, creative activism and political work. Can you tell us a bit about that and how that happened?
Yeah, sure. We were hired to do the identity for a radio station, a new radio station called Air America Radio, which was kind of when right-wing radio was growing bigger and bigger and bigger, pre-Fox. So this was the answer to that, to have left-wing radio. So we did the identity, we did all the, marketing materials and everything. And it was really exciting because I felt like this could make a difference. We could really make a difference here. It was the 2004 election. And of course, we did not make a difference. But then when Obama was running 4 years later, he was it. He was everything.
Yeah.
So I was like, what can I do? What can I do? So we had a fundraiser first in Dumbo called A Bridge to Somewhere, because Sarah Palin had been talking about a bridge to nowhere. And it was just over the Brooklyn Bridge to somewhere. And then 4 years later, we did one called Baracklin at the Brooklyn Bowl. And then for Hillary, we did one called, it was a huge event. We raised over $1 million, and it was called Laugh Your Pantsuit Off. And it was just women stand-up comedians. And it was amazing.
Fantastic.
It was really great. But and then with my friends, we do lots of smaller events for different candidates that we believe in.
So together, you and your group of collaborators,
Yes.
you conceive of these events, and then I imagine that you join superpowers. You have this graphic design superpower. I'm sure they have other superpowers, and you make these things happen and raise a lot of money for the cause.
Yes, exactly.
Fantastic.
We had one before the 2018 election called Flip Off the GOP for four Democratic candidates, and 3 of them here in New York, and 3 of them did flip seats. So it was really exciting.
That is exciting.
To help make a difference.
Is this how your book, Signs of Resistance, came into being? Was it did it grow out of this activity?
No, weirdly, it didn't.
Really?
The book came because Adobe has this very big conference with like 13,000 attendees.
Is that Adobe Max?
Yes, Adobe Max. Very good. So they asked me to speak, and they said, so we'd like you to speak about the future of design. And I said, I don't know anything about the future of design. And they said, oh, okay, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, well, there's nothing but the resistance. I can't talk about anything but the resistance. And so they said, okay, talk about the resistance. And so I made this talk, and people really responded to it in a way that I didn't anticipate. And so I showed my publisher my talk. Actually, I gave the talk to the whole publishing house. And they were like, how quickly can you make it? So that's became my second book.
Did you realize it was a book pitch that you were giving, or you were just like, I'm giving my talk again. I really like this talk.
Somewhere in between.
Yes.
I didn't know. I was hoping. It hadn't occurred to me. I had a specific reason for doing the talk.
Y'all, this book, Signs of Resistance, get yourself to a bookstore or get
incredible.
Online and get this book. It is a beautiful book.
Thank you.
You mentioned like being really riled up after
Yes.
the election. And so was that timing, did that correlate, like you being passionately angry and them asking you to speak?
I think it was like June that they asked me to speak in November or in October. And then the book I sent the files out in January. So it happened really quickly.
Wow.
But I already did have the talk. I mean, I had done a lot of
So you
the
had
work.
started to pull a lot of those.
Yeah, but then I had to get permissions.
Yeah. That's a big project.
Yeah.
When I was reading it, and I was like, you're a historian.
I love history.
It shows beautifully in that book.
It shows.
Did digging into all of that art and all of those historical protest signs, did it soothe you? Did it rile you up further?
No, it definitely soothed me because at this moment that we're speaking, the impeachment trial isn't over. So I can't talk about today without, getting hysterical. But at the time, it made me feel better to recognize all the incredibly difficult times we've survived in America.
Yeah.
And that, people and women have stood up and made those changes happen slowly sometimes. Like I told in the talk you saw, to get suffrage, it began in 1848 and ended in 1920. That means women were shouting for 72 years.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
72 years is so many years.
I know.
It's a lot of years.
A long
Those
time.
are lifetimes.
I know.
Yeah.
And we learn about them in about a 30-minute, class somewhere in our high school trajectory.
Right. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully we do. Yeah, but 72 years.
But there were tons of really difficult times where the country was at peril and really divided, not counting the Civil War or counting the Civil War. And so that comforted me to see how much we've survived. Mm-hmm. Today, I don't feel that way. But
is there, just jumping back to what you said a moment ago, I cannot imagine what a project it was to get the rights for all of this material. Was there anything that you didn't get the rights to that you were like, oh, this is a heartbreaker?
Yes. And some things were super expensive. I mean, a lot, like colleagues of mine gave me, but there were a few historical things we had to pay for. And some things were just absurd. So we just couldn't do it.
Wow, that's so interesting.
What a shame. Like that they won't be counted.
Historical items, I know.
Historical items won't be in a historical timeline.
It's an amazing thing that you have compiled. It's really something that you put together.
You guys are so nice.
No, it really is. We're not just buttering your bread. It
selective
really
as well.
Was there, in addition to that sort of riled up feeling that you had after the election, was there you did it so quickly too. You accomplished it so quickly and turned it around. Was there a specific goal that you were carrying in your head or your heart as you were running this across the finish line so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, after I did the talk, I felt like that was like, I felt a real accomplishment, like to share all of this and encourage people to become active like all these Americans had done before them for whatever you care about. Mm-hmm. Just get involved, because when you're not involved, then you can't complain.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, people do, but you really can't.
It's almost to inspire.
Right. So I wanted
people
to inspire activism, and I feel like it. So I was just like, I'm done. That was great when I finished the talk. And then the book was just that on another level.
Fantastic.
I'd say, I mean, goal achieved. It's impossible to like look at that book and not feel inspired and to not realize, and I know you're working on another or just finished another project called We Are the Dream.
Yes.
Where I think that's going to inspire more activists as well. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I just posted it on Instagram today.
I might have seen it, but I already knew because you told me about it.
It's a documentary on HBO called We Are the Dream, and it's the Oakland, California MLK Oratorical Project. So it's a big contest across middle schools, and the kids have to get on stage and recite from memory either a speech of MLK, something they wrote, or something else that's sort of inspired by MLK. Mm-hmm. And these kids work really hard and are so inspiring. I mean, again, you're just going to be weeping by the end. It's a beautiful show.
I cannot wait to see it.
Sounds great.
Do you feel a sense of responsibility to use your graphic superpowers for good?
Oh, definitely. But I feel like everybody should feel a sense of responsibility to use their superpowers for good. Everybody has a superpower.
You would think that, wouldn't you? You'd think that people would want to do
We
that.
like to reiterate that when we can.
It was really palpable when we were looking actually at both of the books that we've talked about for clients, and also these they're both so strong and powerful, and you can see how if somebody was as gifted as any of the graphic designers represented, they could use that for the powers of not good.
Yeah, but but actually, I mean, people often bring up, that kind of thing about the other side, but artists tend to be on this side of the divide because they have an open mind and are thinking about things outside of their bank account.
And they have empathy and
yes, naturally sensitive with empathy. So it just it works out that way. But the other thing about everybody in the book was nobody asked anybody almost everything in the book, with the exception of, a poster for the government or something. But nobody asked anybody to do these things. Their only client was their own conscience and their own drive.
I love that. They granted themselves permission to
express themselves.
It makes so much sense. When you look through that book, some of those designs, many of those designs are so inspired that they're shocking. They're beautiful pieces of art. But I'm also like, that is so smart. It's so clever.
But you know what else? I've done workshops, like poster workshops with people, and all you have to do really is figure out what you care about the most. Like dig deep down.
Yes.
What makes you especially for women's marches, but what makes you the angriest?
Yes.
And try and express that. And then it will be authentic and moving.
We did an episode recently. I did a Spark about making change. And I was like, here's a formula for you. Pick one thing. Just pick one. Absolve yourself of the responsibility of the rest of the dumpster fire that is happening in the world right now, and actually do something. But I love what you're saying, which is pick that thing that's really like burning a hole in your ass, and find a way to express it.
I've never heard that expression before.
It's a keeper.
It's a Brandon. But I just think, I think where the brilliance comes is some of those things that I see that people have arrived at. It's represented in the book. I'm like, how did you think of that? It's so brilliant. There's so many examples of just these flashes of creative brilliance.
Did you have any major takeaway after looking at all of this, all of these examples from history, just in regard to like the sheer power of graphic design to impact emotions and opinions?
And not from this book. I mean, that's just something I've known. I mean, literally from being a kid with actual albums, the big ones, those covers, I mean, they had all the emotion in it. I can't separate those visuals from the music.
Yes.
That's right.
What album covers did you fucking love when you were growing up?
I mean, all the Beatles, but Captain Fantastic, I mean, I could stare at that for hours.
That's a good album cover if you can just like fall into that. Who was it? Journey and Rush. I feel like I remember being on the school bus on the long rural drive to school, and one of the Tharp boys bringing like their Rush album, and just spending like 30-minute bus ride just like looking at that album cover.
No, it's such a shame to not have that, because to look up lyrics, you go online and you find the thing. Do you print it out? Do you not print it out? But when you sit and listen to music and look at it, also, it was just a completely different experience.
In your beanbag chair.
Truly was.
I'm being such an old person.
No, I'm with you.
But I miss it is all, because I don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I printed out the lyrics to Hamilton,
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
But it wasn't the same to have my 20 pieces of
sheet of paper.
No, and you get it from some site that doesn't look like it's related
I got
in any way.
when I bought bought the CD. I mean, when I
did.
bought the MP3, whatever it was, that you get the
download.
booklet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then,
Good.
So it was official.
Okay.
But we also
That's
don't
good.
have the free time that we had to like make an afternoon of sitting and staring at the cover for Dark Side of the Moon. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
You were
No, that-
actively
We don't have the
listening
free
to
time
music.
anymore, but it
To Dark Side of the Moon.
Bonnie, we are kind of obsessed with a topic, and that is how people process creative failure or perceived failure, like in your own mind. Do you have any big quote unquote failures that you faced, and how did you handle them?
Oh, definitely. Because I have a lot of ideas and I try to make them come to life, and I can't always make them come to life. But that's the most fun part. It's just like inventing something out of whole cloth. And yeah, it's happened too many times.
Well, you know what? I think for a lot of people, and we've talked to a number of highly successful creative people who, when they encountered what they perceived as a failure, it shut them down for long periods of time. Like in
Right.
some cases, like I'm putting that in a drawer, or I'm moving across the country and I'm not going to sing anymore. Things like that. You sound like you have a really healthy, like, well, that didn't work.
Well, also because I have my studio. So I'm always doing work with other people, and then I'm just trying to slip these other things in on the side. So it's not like I got fired. Ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I see. Gotcha.
Can I jump into
yeah.
something I'm so curious about? Is there, in addition to the aforementioned, all the things that you have made, is there something that you've made that you're super proud of? And this could even just be like a one-off logo or something that you're just really proud of.
Yes. I'm sure there is. I mean, I remember when I worked at VH1, there was one.
VH1.
The wistful look in your eyes right now.
There was one thing that I did that made me so happy.
What was it?
I mean, I know it's been like forever, but I don't even know what the logo is now, but then it was a triangle. I don't know if you can picture it. It was a triangle like this.
Yes.
Yes.
And then like a box for the H and a 1.
Yes.
So, and I was responsible for the bug in the corner of the screen when there used to be bugs in the corners of screens. And so for Christmas, I turned the V upside down.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
And the V, to illustrate that it was a V and not a triangle, there was a little rectangle in it. I didn't design the logo. So when you turned it upside down, it was a Christmas tree. And it lived in the corner of the
perfect.
screen. And it made me so happy.
I love that. Those small delights. I love that.
And that you remember that, and you remember the feeling it gave you so
'Cause it
many
was-
years.
Yeah, because it was on TV. I mean, I'm a TV person. I love TV. I always have. I wanted to work in TV. I wanted to be Mary Tyler Moore. And so, like, that was
And
just
look at you.
major.
And look
With your
at
development
you.
deal. Look at you.
Look at you.
I'm so proud of you.
Is there a creative thing that you know you need to do before you're done? Like more things you're itching to do? I mean, it knowing you're just like, oh, I'm doing it. I'm doing it all. But
Yeah, I just want to keep doing it and do more different things that I haven't done before.
yeah.
I love that. You have been in the creativity game for a while. Do you have any creative advice for us and for our listeners?
I think this is the same thing you asked me the other night that I couldn't answer, because I mean, I can talk about specific problem solving, like how to approach something from a different angle or get a new perspective on something. But the whole thing for me is that problem solving, that curiosity. What's the best way to represent this and make a connection with another human being, which is what graphic design is about to me, is making that emotional connection. But in general, for all creativity, because, this is also, I don't think about creativity.
You're just
are
living
it. You
it.
personify it.
So I don't know if I can articulate it beyond, one thing that's funny, my husband is an artist, And so for him, a blank piece of paper is like the happiest thing in the world. Like anything is possible. But I'm not an artist like that. I'm a problem solver.
She almost said, I'm not a fucking artist.
No, I almost said I'm not a fine artist, actually.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
because you're classy.
The other
or
F
I'm a
word.
different kind of artist. But so I need someone to say, okay, this is the company. This is what we want to communicate. I need someone to give me that problem to solve. So it's two very
That
different.
makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Can I ask you this? I'm just thinking about what you said there and about your VH1 Christmas tree bug. And I'm wondering, like, how do you know when you're like, I got it?
I wish I had the answer to. I just know.
You're just, do you feel it?
Yes, definitely.
And
It's
when-
like I don't know. It's like searching for gold or something. You're just like
Yes.
hammering away.
Yeah.
And then it shines.
And then
I've
you trust
actually
it.
Yes.
witnessed this happen because I've been in a room with you where you're like, I know this is it. And then sometimes waiting for everyone to make the
arrive.
realization and come to that same conclusion.
All the
But-
trains pull into
But
the
the
station.
certainty within Bonnie is so, I don't know, it's very, it's comforting. So I'm like, Bonnie knows, so I feel great.
There is
Yeah.
something about that, like whatever that eureka flash is, that,
Yeah.
I would be comforted by
Right.
that too. I don't fucking know.
Bonnie
I'm not a
knows.
graphic designer. Bonnie knows.
I'm going to trust Bonnie's instinct.
You have made so much. You get so much done. You work really hard.
Yes.
What's it all for?
Oh gosh, it's just the joy of doing it. This is just what makes me happy.
Mm.
I mean, I need to, support my family and stuff like that, but
Sure.
but it's what makes me happy. And my husband and I both are just constantly working. And I have two boys, 14 and 19. And my 19-year-old, people have suggested this to me. It didn't really occur to me, but he started a business when he was 15, and now he's a very successful influencer.
Really?
Really. And people have said it's probably because you guys both love what you do. And that was the example.
Huh.
And so he took on what he loved to do. And now he didn't go to college. He's just working. He has
He's
an
just
apartment
doing
in
it.
Hudson Yards. And
He's just living it.
He's
and
living
doing
it.
He's living
Yes.
it like you live it.
right. But in a complete, it's all about the NBA.
Yeah.
Like it's in a completely different place. But just, that's what work should be, is doing what you love.
I think this might be the advice that you don't know yet that you have to give, which is I feel like it's that critical first step, which is finding that thing that you found when you were at Disney and you
Yes.
were like, I don't know why,
Right.
but this is turning my crank.
Mm-hmm.
And then finding that thing. I don't know a lot of other young people who in their notebooks were redesigning the Kleenex logo, but finding that thing that is your Kleenex logo.
Right.
Yeah.
It just authentically, comes from that spirit of joy. And I love imagining that your son just grew up knowing that. Like that wasn't something that a college professor said to him, like,
Right.
go try to find something you really like.
Exactly.
He just was integrated into
That's
his
so
upbringing.
cool. That's great.
Bonnie, finally, what or who is sparking you right now?
I just saw a Bridget Riley exhibit in London that blew my mind.
Can you tell us who Bridget Riley is?
She's a painter, a fine artist. Very
fine fucking artist.
Fine.
Exactly. Do you guys actually not know who she is?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, we really don't.
She does things with shapes. It's a lot of shapes. It's completely abstract. But also what they had in the exhibit was what she did when she was young, like how it built up to where she got.
How cool.
That's
So it was
interesting.
really incredible to see how she got, because, it's the kind of art that people could say, I could do that, but you didn't.
But you
you
did.
did.
And her process to get there was just amazing and really inspiring. So you should look her up.
Fantastic.
Boy, I like the idea of seeing like a successful artist's early work,
Evolution.
like their whole
yeah.
evolution, because the number of times people imagine stopping. And so if you could look at so many artists and realize, had you stopped right here, we wouldn't have
That's
this.
so interesting,
Well,
Cams.
at the Andy Warhol Museum in Pittsburgh, you can see that, and it's amazing. And also at the Gertrude Whitney house in Venice.
Yeah.
There's a room that has like 10 Jackson Pollocks, and it's one every 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And you see the evolution and how he got to where he got, which really changes the way you look at that last one.
Uh-huh.
It's really beautiful.
That is fascinating. When we went to
Interesting.
the Hilma af Klint exhibit at the Guggenheim, and they showed her early work, which is like very pastoral fields, it like what she would have done when she was in art school, and floral studies and things like
A
that.
bowl of fruit?
And then to see what when her like mind cracked open and the
And
spirits were
where she
speaking to
went
her,
with
Right,
it.
and she
where
would
she
never
went.
have gotten there
She wouldn't have
had she not gone through this process, which is
Yeah.
why you never want to discourage young people from keep going. They have to keep going.
That's why
keep
we
doing it.
notice and we wonder.
Exactly.
I notice,
I
wonder.
I notice, I wonder.
That's a keeper.
That is. See, you got all sorts
You
of
are
great
so
creative
good.
advice.
You are so, so good. My God. Thank you so much for joining us, Bonnie Siegler.
Thank you for having me. This was
It's
really
funny,
fun.
Before we sign you off and let you go, I'm just like, tell us what else
Tell
you
us
need to tell
more.
us, because I
What
feel like we
else?
have so much to learn from you, and I don't
I
want to let you
know.
go until you just download it into
We're
our
meeting again
brains.
after this without all the, microphones.
Wait, I have
and
one
everything.
thing I have to tell you.
Oh, yeah, let's
I actually have a folder on my desktop called Inspiration, and whenever I see
have a
something,
Spark file?
I literally have a Spark file.
Yes.
What's in there right now, just off the top of your head?
Tons of images, photographs, sometimes a phrase that somebody uses in an article. I'll screenshot it, put it in.
There you
Love
go.
it.
See,
Bonnie Siegler has a Spark file. I love
that's the name of my new YA novel. Bonnie Siegler has a Spark file. It's ridiculous. So that's it. We hope this put another bunch of sparks in your file. Listen, if there's a spark you'd like us to explore, if you've taken a little spark and you fanned it into a creative flame and you'd like to share that, email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com or submit it through our website, thesparkfile.com.
We'll even take your feedback, but you know the price of admission. First, you have to share a creative risk that you've taken recently.
And be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe, rate, 5-star review it. If you like this podcast, share it with people you love. If you didn't like it, Bonnie, what do you say to critics? What do you say to people who don't love your work?
I mean, there was one time I did this identity for the Brooklyn Public Library. And the logo, we made it BKLYN. And in the newspapers in Brooklyn, they said that we spelled Brooklyn wrong.
To which you said,
They're writing about the library. What is better than that? Like, when was the last time you wrote an article about A, graphic design, but B, the library?
so I guess what we're saying is, if you didn't like it, you've already listened this far.
Exactly.
We're writing about the library.
If something tickles your fancy and gets your creative juices flowing, we're writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
You got to mine it. You got to refine it. You got to get all riled up and full on graphic design it.
You got to take it and make it. Bye.
Bye, Bonnie.
Bonnie.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my Spark file. Could be something that I wanna make or how I wanna be. I pump it in my Spark file. I jump into my Spark file. Let's open up the Spark file.
Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the chief creative officer and chief marketing officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.